Hello and welcome back to the Comic Lounge. Soon I will be getting into basically the rest of the comics I picked up since the month of February, and there's a pretty big stack here, and the majority of it is DC related or just DC comics in general. So with that, I'll soon get into it. See you after the intro. Okay, so let's get into this big stack of DC Comics stuff that I have been picking up since February. I figured it'd be better just to get through all the stuff that I've been picking up since February. So what we have here is, found this in the dollar bin. It is the Amethyst annual, or basically it would be also called a special, but it's the annual #1 and possibly the only annual anyways. Again, Amethyst, the princess of Gem World. Again, for the condition that it was in, and that being the first annual, and obviously there was quite a bit of Amethyst comics out in the dollar bin in the shop that I usually go to here in town. But for the price and for the condition, I could not pass it up. So obviously got it. Definitely close to high grade, but not super near mint. But it's definitely above a mid grade for certain. There you go. This was $2, and obviously with all the Azrael comics that they had, this one obviously jumped out at me. But it is obviously from his first ongoing series. It is Azrael #37. And of course, this is the homage to Batman, I think 497, I think 498, 97, I think. Definitely was not 87. I think it was like 497. Again, the very iconic Bane breaking Batman's back. But this is a homage to that cover, and this of course has the headline "The Return of Bane." Not quite, I wouldn't say the Return of Bane, but it's definitely the first true, I guess, battle between Azrael and Bane, because Azrael had technically kicked Bane's ass when he was Batman, taking over when he broke Batman's back. But once he kicked his ass, well, we all know how that went. So Batman, I wouldn't get his other shot at Bane until I think maybe a year or two after this issue, or close to this, when of course where he wasn't hooked on the Venom. That's how the whole story goes. But obviously for $2, couldn't pass it, especially for the condition it's in. It's definitely still above a mid grade. Still very good to get. Very cool. Here are some modern Detective Comics issues just trying to do for some time. We have some modern ones here. We have this Detective #1010, and of course 1011. The main reason is because of Deadshot. These are later Deadshot related stuff, and I'm just been trying to dip my toes into more of Deadshot. But these are definitely later ones. Obviously it was about 2019 maybe or so, 2020. Definitely the late 2010s, obviously, possibly on the cusp of the early 2020s or whatever. But awesome. Very cool Jay Lee cover here too. I actually really dig the Jay Lee depiction of Deadshot. Not very familiar with this artist, but it's a very cool too. And the story wasn't too bad. I definitely dug these issues a lot. Not too much, but definitely they were very enjoyable modern Batman Deadshot stories. Obviously after a plane crash, and obviously Bruce Wayne not having his Batman clothing, he had to come with the whole new outfit by beating he met, was it like stranded World War II era veterans, one from the United States, one that was actually fighting on the Japan side. So it's a really fun story, and also has some touching moments. So it was very fun. But for free, both these for $3. So and being later Deadshot, I had to. Here we go. dipping more into this is actually the new 52 era of Deathstroke, but these were kind of interesting to kind of pick up, and even though these weren't really, I wasn't really crazy about the stories here, but it's still kind of cool, especially for some of the art. But it's the Forever Argus, Forever Evil Argus, new 52, this being number 1. Obviously, I also wanted this, and it's because of the Brett Booth art, Spawn related, and of course, here we have this at number 2. Still not familiar with this artist here, but obviously, it's a great Deathstroke cover, fighting, of course, Steve Trevor, Wonder Woman's boyfriend, and everything. Still, these were okay, $3, but nothing too much to like write home about. But still, I wanted them for obviously the covers and everything, and they're just decent enough additions to my Deathstroke collection, which is just growing and growing. Next up, we have a very iconic Justice League issue, since, of course, Guy Gardner being in he's being played by Nathan Fillion in the newest James Gunn Superman movie. Here we have is Justice League issue number 5, the very iconic Batman punches Guy Gardner issue. Obviously, this is more of a mid-tier grade, maybe slightly upper mid-tier. It's definitely not super near mint. Definitely not nowhere near mint. But still a very good-looking copy, and for like what? I think $3 for this one, or was it $5? Can't remember, but it was actually a very good grab, and obviously it's an iconic issue, and given all the hype right now around Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, still it's very much worthy. So there you go. Back to the Deathstroke. Here we have one of the more iconic stories, and that's definitely saying a lot, given this is one of the stories that made the character. But it's the for the price, and definitely not a near mint condition. It is very much a mid-tier grade, not really low tier, but it's definitely very much a mid-tier grade. But here we have is Tales of the Teen Titans, issue number 42, the first part in the Judas contract. When I found it for like $3, I could not, I couldn't grab this anywhere quicker. This was obviously one of the ones I was like really stoked to grab, just because of this is a good sort of addition to my Deathstroke collection. And of course, I also dig the Titans anyways. I grew up watching the old the TV show from the 2000s that aired on Cartoon Network. I grew up on that, but I really have grown appreciation for the original, the original versions of the comic characters. But great, just George Perez art and everything, Marv Wolfman, obviously. So I couldn't pick that much any more faster. And speaking of more Titans, here we have it. So the more early 90s period. And these are all kind of a part of like the Titans Hunt. And then, of course, the aftermath of the Titans Hunt, where we have New Titans number 82, which almost is close to, it's around the period of basically would be considered the death of Jericho, which is Deathstroke's youngest son. And of course, here we have the issue that normally would be considered the death of Jericho. And I actually consider 83 to be the death of Jericho, because at the end of the page, well, it kind of gives away. But still, this definitely, I don't know, they'll say even the death of Phantasm as well. This one there, he appeared, of course, around this period. But, and they say death of Raven, but not really. They just, Marv Wolfman was obviously giving her a break. But these were definitely very much good to have for me. I guess these also fit into my Deathstroke collection. And here we have is also number 85, which this is considered the very first appearance of the Baby Roller Beast. This is definitely the beginning of a not so really good period. I'd say this is when the whole period for Marv Wolfman's Titans started to really take a nosedive for me from here. Obviously, there's just it just starts to jump the shark, and it's not really all that not really as interesting, as gripping as it was before. I'd say the Titans Hunt was the last sort of good story that he made. It was like the last bit of breath that it obviously was breathed into the series until here taking a nosedive, but still Deathstroke related, Titans related, kind of have to have it in there. Even if it's a minor story, it's a minor key. And of course, to end off the 90s period for some right now that I have for Deathstroke related stuff in Titans, here we have is number 90, which is part 2 on the Total Chaos story, which is a crossover that went from Deathstroke solo series, the new Titans, and of course the brand new Team Titans stuff. And obviously in like comparison to like the Titans Hunt, this is like pales in comparison. Still, I'm fine with having it, so couldn't pass it up for $3. Here's some 2000 sort of Teen Titans here, and I got these mainly for, well, this character right here. So we have number 57 and number 58. This would be what the second appearance of like the Terror Titans, which was like a group with Clock King and I think Copperhead and I think a couple other characters already. But I mainly got because of, well, Rose Wilson, Deathstroke's daughter, and especially in the more iconic Ravager suit, her being the 4th Ravager. But a very awesome cover and really one of my favorites to kind of grab of this. And of course, here we have the next one here, which has this is more of a story that is on Ms. Martian. I think it was like the niece, whatever, of Martian Manhunter. But it's also a very cool cover. Also has her on it, and including the Jaime Raya's Blue Beetle. So very awesome. Again, for $3, I couldn't pass up on these. And here we go for more early, actually, this would be like early 2010s Deathstroke related stuff. But here we have this Titans number 24. Very cool cover though, and that's probably the first ever Deathstroke Lex Luthor sort of base cover. And then of course we have the companion. It's the second part to this story. It's number 25. These were like the continuation of the Villains for Hire one-shot issue where Deathstroke put together sort of a team of basically like anti-hero, anti-villain sort of a team where they tried to actually do sort of heroic stuff. It felt like more like a throwback to Deathstroke's sort of anti-hero sort of period from the 90s and so on. And it was kind of getting back to those roots. I actually thought it was kind of cool. And these were not too bad stories. I actually enjoyed these. But awesome covers as usual. Get close to the end of the DC lot here. So this was really fun. This is actually really recent. Picked this up like a few days ago. But I was looking through some of the Omega Man stacks that they had, the band of all Omega Man issues, and this, of course, was in there. It's not number 3, but it's still as good as number 3 in my opinion. But here we have is number 5, the second appearance of Lobo, plus the issue where Lobo gets the name Lobo, because apparently, as I'm finding out, even though he made his debut on the cover for number 3, however, to find out that he was nameless in that issue makes it very interesting, and it makes it just as more interesting that his second appearance is when they were Keith Giffen and them give him the name Lobo. So this is the issue where he's called Lobo, folks, and it's a second appearance. And again, these are very easy to find high grades, as I'm finding out, because of obviously these were printed more bigger covers, like cardstock, paper, and everything. It was just a lot more better printed, and there's no newsstand edition for these. These were obviously made to be released in like the direct market, so from the comic shops. This was the goal. So you're obviously going to find at least a lot more higher grade, maybe above mid-grade copies than you're going to find any trash copies, I think, of these comics. So that's why. Still, it's very awesome to have, and it's definitely a good addition to obviously some of my Lobo keys and just key DC issues in general. So obviously a good one. Finally, they ended off. Here we have is Superman, the Man of Steel issue number 10, which is the 5th part in the Panic in the Sky story arc. And this one I mainly got because of Well, it also has Deathstroke in it, and also Guy Gardner. And it's a very much a throwback to the, I forget what number it is for Crisis on Infinite Earths, where Superman is holding Supergirl, which that covers technically more like a homage to a particular Batman issue, I think. I forgot the name of the artist, but there's a similar Batman issue from like I think the 60s where Batman is holding Robin. So that's kind of a throwback to that, but everyone remembers the Crisis on Infinite Earths issue, so that's why. Still, it's a fun one to have. I'm still trying to collect all the other parts for the Panic in the Sky story. I know I can get the trade paperbacks, but I like to have the individual issues just because I like to collect. Alright, so that does it for all the DC stuff. Let's get into what I have, at least of Image and Marvel. So, since I showed some, like the most recent issue of Spawn, let me show them some of the recent ones I picked up last month that were Spawn related. So, first off, this was one of the first brand new Spawn comics I ever added to the collection when I started getting back to reading newer Spawn. But it is 356. But what I started out was the now iconic Mark Spears cover, the one that now everyone's now bumping up for nearly $40 now. So I went ahead and grabbed the alt cover by Taunton Revolver. So there's this one. Same issue. This is basically the origin for the new character, Lyra, I think her name is. She's like a half-breed angel from heaven and angel from hell, whatever. So it's a very much her origin issue, but what this is mostly recognized for is because it's got the Mark Spears cover, which was the main cover. This was the variant. But this is the first time I've ever, again, where I will get a variant if there's a bit of a price tag on one variant that I have. So I just will, as a backup until if I have to get around to selling my copy of 356. So this is basically just for keeps until then, because I don't think anybody's ever going to really go head over heels for a Taunt Revolver cover, even though he's a great artist. He's very cool, but Mark Spears right now is like the superstar, so that's why. So get it in case. And here is last month's issue of Spawn at 361. What with this variant again for alright, forgot the artist, Jordan Barons. Holy crap. Jordan Barons. He's a very interesting artist. I do like his work, even though it's not as much like compared to, let's say, Brett Booth or Taunt Revolver, even like Von Randall, who I just think are, I just love their art a lot. But he's pretty cool. Alright. This was obviously a bit of a cheap one, but really what stood out to me with this one is that it's definitely a late 90s Captain America. It's issue number 10. This is actually the first appearance for some sort of, it was like the Serpent King, whatever they called him. And there's technically is a reveal for the character is, and it's that kind of a dead giveaway on the cover. You just have to kind of look real closely to kind of figure out who it turns out to be. Anyways, what really stood out to me is that it's a newsstand edition, and obviously newsstand editions from like the late 90s usually tend to have at least some sort of eye candy, just because of, well, this was still during the period where a lot of everything was still flooded with direct market stuff. Even this is kind of during the period where the comic book boom, it just completely crashed, and they're all trying to offer, like all the comic book shops were ordering at least a smaller number of copies. Still not as much, maybe not as much compared to the newsstand market, which was starting to really get low by this point. So for me, even if it isn't like a major key and it's not really that super highly asked for, or like, you know, it's not everyone's wanting, still to find a newsstand for like a late 90s Marvel comic, just like I'll find any newsstand for any Spawn issue. Well, it does have some sort of interesting, some interest to me. So it was really kind of cool. The great Joe Bennett art, of course, a homage to a very classic Captain America page and one of the earlier Captain America comics from the Silver Age. So there you go. So here is the final part, and not only the final issue for the return of the Journey into Mystery, but also it's the final part in Hannibal King's very first ever solo story, which is kind of crazy how long they waited to give him his own little solo story after first appearing around the same time as Blade and like Tomb of Dracula. So it's very cool. And of course, being written by Marv Wolfman, the creator of the character, alongside Blade as well. So this was really cool, and I don't really see much of this as often, even though I know these are not super rare. But I don't know how rare they are to come by in the wild. I don't know how many people tend to hold them, but either way, it's still kind of cool to find. And even though it isn't a super high grade, it's definitely more of a it's definitely more of a mid-tier grade at best. Still, it was really cool to find, especially for $3. And I do have the first part, but I needed the second part anyways to kind of complete it. Because so far, I don't think these have ever been collected in a trade paperback. Maybe possible, but I'm not quite sure. Still, very cool to have nonetheless. And I also enjoyed the story too. Very much more different than what than the version that everyone was probably introduced to in Blade Trinity, played by Ryan Reynolds, which these days probably just felt like Deadpool light, instead of the sort of very stoic, very so much more cold, I guess you could say, very vampire detective. Obviously, a character I might even find parallels to Joss Whedon's Angel. A very similar sort of pattern, though different is he uses a gun and he has no problem shooting. There you go. That was it. Very cool. All right, so obviously been trying to get at least a few more early Man Things, but I found this. This is the Micronauts Special number 3, which of course, obviously a reason I got it, because again, it's Man Thing, and this of course collects issues number 6 and 7 with the half the page of number 8, which that continues in the special number 4 actually, the one after this. Still, I got this because of it's a Man Thing, and I just want to have at least Man Thing stuff from the Bronze Age. So that's the only reason. It's a great cover too, and of course inside it's all Michael Golden's very cool art nonetheless. So it's just really awesome, and eventually I'll get around to checking these out because I've always had a fascination with the character Man Thing. Second to last here, this is just around the time I picked up the Omega Man issue number 5. I also picked this one up. It is Punisher War Journal number 62. This is of course the fourth part in the Suicide Run story arc, which ran from Punisher into Warzone and War Journal. So, but the reason I got this one is because this is technically, I would say, the first cover appearance for Lynn Michaels, who first appeared in Punisher Warzone, I think number 7. So that would be her first appearance, but this would be her first appearance, or like on a cover. But it would also be considered her first appearance even as, the Punisher, according to at least League of the comic geeks I usually catalog my stuff on. They claim this is the first of her as the Punisher, but according to key comic collectors, this is considered the first her in a Punisher suit, wearing like the Punisher skull and so on. So it's kind of all over. Still, it is, I would say, the first cover appearance for Len Michaels, who was, I would say this was like Marvel's sort of, their reaction, whatever, to Pat Tracy from the Deathstroke comics over at DC in a way. Her being at least a cop, and then turn vigilante and so on. So that's the only reason. I feel like that she was a response to Pat Tracy from the Deathstroke stuff. So yeah, and because they were just competing against each other, the two characters. Still, it's a really cool Michael Golden cover, and just so overall, it's really awesome to have, and I just like that. Finally, here we have is Web of Venom Wraith. And this, of course, is the Wraith versus Null cover. And, of course, this is considered the death of Wraith, which, obviously, after battling Null, well, it practically kills him. So, still, for like $3, and then, of course, after the Venom the Last Dance, and, of course, that being the first movie ever live-action appearance of Null, obviously, I had to at least grab something that was Null-related, and this, obviously, at the shop, they had a lot of copies of this, a lot of copies of it for $3. I just couldn't pass it up, so just wanted that. It's pretty cool, nonetheless. So there you go, folks. Hope all of you enjoyed. If you have any sort of, let's say, thoughts on all the stuff that I showed, you can all leave them down in the comment section below. So for those, if you liked what you see, hit that subscribe button. So until then, this is Henry Thrashhead saying I am out, and I'll see you back here soon at the Comic Lounge.